Hae-In was starting to show signs of tension. Channeling her magical aura, she prepared for the fight. Jin-Woo, meanwhile, had just summoned Beru, his most powerful shadow. Before the duel began, he turned to Hae-In and asked if she was truly sure about this. Did she really want to go up against that monster? In his mind, Jin-Woo reflected, Beru is weaker now than he was before now that he's become my shadow. Even so, he was born as a living weapon, created to hunt down hunters. To make this fair, I need to give Hae-In some kind of advantage. Beru looked to his king and asked for orders. Jin-Woo replied firmly, defeat Hae-In. But do not injure her. Without hesitation, Beru obeyed. He lunged forward and unleashed a deafening roar as his mana exploded outward. The impact was immediate. Light fixtures burst one after another, plunging the gym into darkness. Windows and ceiling lamps shattered on the spot. His power was overwhelming, unreal. Hae-In stood in awe. How did Jin-Woo ever manage to defeat something like that? Beru readied himself for combat, black claws extended, sharp and gleaming, ready to strike. But before he could act, Jin-Woo warned him again, control yourself if you hurt her. You won't be forgiven. Beru feared losing his king's approval, so he would obey every order with perfect precision. Hae-In took a deep breath. She had to stay completely focused. In a blink, Beru vanished. The next moment, he was behind her. She barely had time to react, shocked by his sheer speed. Will this be like the last time? She thought, spinning fast to counterattack. But this time, she wouldn't hesitate. She struck on instinct. It was no use. Beru caught the blade with just 3 fingers. If he'd wanted to, he could have ended the fight right there. But his master's command was clear, win the match without causing harm. With that single move, Beru made the power gap between them painfully obvious, a difference so vast, it could break someone's fighting spirit. And yet, this was only the beginning. Hae-In didn't back down. With her sword gripped tightly, she pressed forward, strike after strike. As fierce as her attacks were, Beru dodged them with ease, his movements nearly impossible to track. Then she tried something different, a decisive strike aimed straight at Beru's core. She dashed in, fast and full of resolve, but as always, Beru sidestepped with ease at the last second. The gap in strength and speed was overwhelming. Still, the S-rank hunter refused to give up. This isn't over, she shouted, lunging again with her blade. This time, she unleashed a flurry, a relentless chain of fast, precise, and unpredictable strikes. Hae-In poured everything into her assault, but Beru weaved through each one with flawless grace. His movements were like an elegant, deadly dance. She was beginning to lose her composure. This is insane. He's dodging everything even from this close. Suddenly, Beru shifted his stance. He dashed forward in a flash, stopping just inches from her. And then he let out a thunderous roar. The sound shook the entire gym. A shockwave rippled outward like an invisible storm, shattering the windows and rattling the floor beneath them. It wasn't even a physical attack. It didn't need to be. The roar alone sent Hae-In flying backward, forcing her to retreat. Jin-Woo watched in silence, then let out a quiet sigh. The result of this match was already decided. Hae-In, are you satisfied? Still kneeling, gasping for breath, her body weighed down by the crushing pressure, she looked up and answered with resolve, not yet. Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. She still wants to keep going. This was bordering on recklessness. I never imagined she'd push herself this far. Even fully aware of the overwhelming gap between them. Beru wasn't just a summoned creature, he was intelligent. But at his core, he was still a weapon of pure destruction. Jin-Woo could feel it. Beru was holding himself back, fighting against his own violent instincts just to obey his king's command. If Hae-In is planning something, she'd better know exactly what she's doing. Beru's glowing eyes locked onto the opponent before him. How dare you? Anyone watching that scene would understand instantly, this was a hunter and his prey. Beru refused to be challenged by someone he believed should be running in fear, then he charged. His speed was absurd in an instant. He was upon Hae-In, black claws ready to tear through anything in his path. She managed to leap away at the very last second, dodging by a hair. Even so, the impact of the strike was catastrophic. Beru's claws tore through the ground like it was paper. Even steel was sliced like soft butter. Wasting no time, Beru repositioned for another strike. But then something changed. Hae-In raised her sword. This time, something was different in her eyes. She channeled every last bit of her magical energy into the blade. It was the technique known as the sword dance. Her body moved. Without hesitation, she dashed toward Beru with everything she had left. Her blade shimmered like it was forged from sunlight itself. She wanted, more than anything, to hurt this enemy. Beru readied himself. Hae-In closed the distance and unleashed her final strike. In a flash, the shadow and caught the glowing sword and crushed it in his grip. The blade shattered in his hand. But she had expected that. She wasn't done yet. There was still one last chance. Her body was on the verge of collapse, her mana nearly gone. But even if it was just a little, it was enough. She poured the last of her energy into the broken sword. The weapon lit up brilliantly. A new blade formed, made entirely of pure mana. It looked like a beam of light shaped into a sword. The technique had a name, Sword of Light. Hae-In lunged forward one final time. This time Beru didn't have time to react. The blade pierced through his chest. Jin-Woo's eyes went wide. She couldn't have. For a moment, Beru's mind short-circuited. And from deep within, a primal order resurfaced. A command etched into his very being from the moment of his creation. Eliminate the enemy. His eyes ignited blazing red. In that instant, he became what he was always meant to be. The killer ant born to hunt and destroy hunters. His body moved on its own, a devastating counterattack. A brutal strike, the kind only a monster could unleash. One capable of overpowering even S-rank hunters. Beru wasn't thinking, he was pure instinct. In that moment, he had only one desire, to annihilate Hae-In. Soon Jin-Woo shouted, "Stop!" But it was too late. Hae-In had no strength left. She couldn't even lift her sword, the end was closing in. Beru's black claws surged forward, ready to finish her. But just before they could touch her, an explosion. A shockwave of energy blasted through the gym, shaking everything to its core. As the dust settled, the sight that emerged left everyone in shock. Soon Jin-Woo stood in front of Beru, with his bare hands. He had stopped the shadow ant's claws. Hae-In stared in disbelief. Even Beru froze, his awareness snapping back all at once. Jin-Woo stared directly into his eyes and spoke with a cold, commanding tone. "I told you to stop." With one hand, he held one of Beru's claws still. With the other, he forced the second down to the ground. The overwhelming strength of Korea's greatest hunter was undeniable. Beru leapt backward, putting distance between them. Then, bowing his head, he began to tremble. He had failed his king. Kneeling before Jin-Woo, his voice shook as he pleaded, "My king, please forgive me." Jin-Woo let out a long sigh. He knew Beru hadn't acted out of malice. But at that moment, his attention had already shifted to someone else. He turned to Hae-In. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded, still visibly shaken. Jin-Woo watched her in silence for a few moments. Then he asked, "Why are you doing this?" Hae-In didn't answer. He continued, "You didn't have to push yourself this far just to join my guild." He crossed his arms, his tone serious. "This was just a test for a no-name guild. It's not worth risking your life over something like that." But was there something more to it? Soon Jin-Woo wanted to understand. What were her real intentions? But she remained silent. Jin-Woo couldn't figure her out. Why is she so determined? He just didn't know. He hadn't yet realized that Hae-In was in love with him. That she wanted to prove herself worthy of standing by his side. Jin-Woo furrowed his brow. "You're really not going to say anything?" Still no answer, so he got straight to the point. "Are you interested in me?" Hae-In's eyes went wide, completely taken off guard. Jin-Woo, on the other hand, assumed that couldn't be it. "No, that can't be the reason. You must be after something else." But then, Hae-In, face flushed, whispered softly, "Yes." The silence that followed was absolute. Soon Jin-Woo stood speechless. Even though she was overwhelmed with embarrassment, Hae-In had finally confessed. Now the only question that remained was, would the two of them become something more? At the headquarters of the American Hunters Association, part of the building was still undergoing repairs after the damage caused by the clash between Hwang Dong-soo and Sung Il-Hwan, the father of Sung Jin-Woo. In the organization's hallways, Mitchell Connor and Miss Norma Selner were speaking with the association's president, David Brennan. Both were apologizing for the recent events. That's when Connor revealed a shocking piece of information. According to Miss Selner's analysis, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo was, in fact, one of the so-called rulers. The revelation caught David Brennan completely off guard. He asked if Jin-Woo really possessed that much power, enough to surpass an entire nation. Norma responded that the question required a deeper explanation. She went on to say that all awakened beings were connected to a source of energy from the other side, and that she could feel that connection. Some hunters shined like shooting stars due to the magnitude of that force. The most exceptional ones she called rulers. But when she analyzed Sung Jin-Woo, something completely unexpected happened. Just remembering it made Norma tremble. Jin-Woo had no connection to that energy at all. When she looked into his eyes, it felt like the darkness inside him stared right back. He didn't just contain darkness, he was the darkness itself. Intrigued, Brennan asked if that meant Jin-Woo was an evil person, but Norma shook her head firmly. What she was talking about wasn't about Jin-Woo's character, it was about the origin of his power. Unlike other hunters, Sung Jin-Woo hadn't gained his strength by following the path. He wasn't using borrowed energy from the other side. His power came from within. It was his own, unique, absolute. And that meant one very clear thing. He wasn't bound by any of the limitations imposed by the path. That's when Mitchell Connor concluded aloud. So, that means his power is limitless. Norma simply nodded in silence. With the revelation still echoing in his mind, David Brennan thanked them for the information and made an immediate decision. He announced he was heading to sublevel 24 and ordered Connor to go with him. As they walked through the halls, Brennan said, "If we can't use Miss Selner to influence him, then we have to bring him to our side, no matter what." He then recalled an incident from the past. "Do you remember that S-rank gate that appeared here?" Connor answered immediately, "How could I forget? That dungeon break wiped out the entire Old West. It was unforgettable." At the time, the 5 most powerful hunters on the planet had been summoned by the US to face the challenge, lured in by the generous rewards. As recognition, they received a special title, equal to that of a nation, giving rise to the term national-level hunters. They faced a colossal threat, Kamish, the flame dragon of insatiable hunger. Because of that single creature, hundreds of hunters lost their lives. David sighed, deep in thought. That tragedy ended up leaving something behind, a gift. When they reached the maximum security room, he released the lock and opened the heavy door. Inside rested the legendary Kamish runestone. It's been about 6 years since that raid. Among all national-level hunters, there was no magical power greater than that artifact. In the center of the cold room, a massive tank dominated the space. Inside, frozen in time, was the massive body of Kamish. Its intact carcass and rune stone were preserved, waiting for the right moment to be used again. Once more, Kamish would offer a great gift to the nation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in Korea, Sung Jin-Woo stood in front of the mirror after a shower. He noticed how much his body had changed since his awakening. He was taller, stronger, with an imposing presence that turned heads wherever he went. His passive regeneration skill didn't just heal injuries, it erased every imperfection. Curious, he asked his sister, Jin-Ah, "What kind of guy do you like?" She frowned and fired back with a bit of sarcasm. "Where did that come from?" "To me, you're just a clueless mess." Jin-Woo looked visibly annoyed. "Thanks for your honesty, sis," he replied dryly. Jin-Ah laughed and tried to kick him, but Jin-Woo didn't even flinch. "You should stop doing that," he warned. "My body's rank S now. Keep that up and you'll end up breaking your leg." He quickly changed the subject and gave her a reminder. "Even if you're the best student in school, you still have homework waiting." Then Jin-Woo revealed that he was thinking of starting his own guild, and asked what name she'd suggest. Without skipping a beat, Jin-Ah replied, "You should call it Jin-Ah." Jin-Woo blinked, confused. Does that mean something could mean my way? But actually, she said, trying not to laugh, "It's just my name backwards." Jin-Woo couldn't help but laugh at the idea. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Hunter Cha Hae-In was at home, drowning in embarrassment. She tossed and turned in bed, overwhelmed by shame. What was I thinking, going after Sung Jin-Woo like that? The way she approached him was practically a confession. He's definitely going to think I'm weird. She muttered, covering her face with her hands. She tried to calm herself down, reminding herself that Jin-Woo had saved her life. It was only natural to feel something for someone like that, right? Even while trying to rationalize it, the shame wouldn't go away. On top of that, Cha Hae-In remembered something important. She had only survived because of Min Byung-yu's healing ability. The memories of that moment came flooding back. She recalled the suffocating sensation of sinking into the darkness of death. Until suddenly, the shadow of Min Byung-yu grabbed her arm and whispered, "Please, tell him this. Warn Hunter Sung Jin-Woo to be careful." It was a warning at the time. She hadn't paid much attention. But now, she remembered Byung-yu's face vividly. That was the last time she ever saw him. The next day at the Knights Guild headquarters, Jong Yu-tae approached the guild master, Park Jong-soo, bringing bad news about a new gate. "Master, we've got a problem. Looks like we won't be able to reserve it." Park Jong-soo frowned. Why not? The portal's evaluation came back extremely high. "It seems to be a rancor gate." Jong-soo stayed silent for a few seconds. "If that's the case, our guild would get wiped out if we tried to take it on." Jong Yu-tae hesitated before continuing, but letting a gate like this slip away would be a huge mistake. The Knights Guild is one of the top 5 in the country. We should only back off if it's a national rank gate. Park Jong-soo scoffed and crossed his arms. "The problem is ... regular people don't understand the difference between ranks," he said. That's when Yu-tae dropped a bomb on his pride. The famed guild is taking that gate again. Park Jong-soo's face changed instantly. Again, the rivalry between the major guilds was just heating up. They couldn't allow Guild Master Ma Dong-wook to snatch up such a valuable gate right under their noses. After all, in terms of strength and numbers, the rancor hunters of the Knights Guild were second to none. But there was one factor that could completely shift the balance. If a rank S hunter joined the scene, everything changed. That's when Jung Yu-tae, a high-level healer, entered the room with a proposal. We could try teaming up with another guild for the raid. But Park Jong-soo didn't like that suggestion. Doing that would be like admitting the Knights Guild isn't strong enough to handle this on its own. Jung Yu-tae smiled, an idea ready on her lips. Well, if we can't convince a whole guild, why not try recruiting just one person? Park Jong-soo raised his eyebrows. So that's what you meant, he murmured. Actually, it was a brilliant idea. Asking another guild for help would be humiliating. But forming a partnership with Sung Jin-Woo, that was a whole different story. Not only would it draw attention, it would drastically increase their chances of success. Jung Yu-tae continued, Jin-Woo cleared a gate about a week ago, but since then, no one's heard from him. Want me to call him? Jong-soo shook his head. No, something this serious can't be handled over the phone. At Sung Jin-Woo's office meanwhile, Jin-Woo was discussing the name of the guild with Jin-Ho. How about Ajin? Jin-Ho smiled, clearly pleased. I think it's a great name. Now we've got an identity. With the name chosen, all they needed was a new member. Curious, Jin-Ho asked, "What about Hunter Cha Hae-In?" Jin-Woo sighed and shook his head. "She's not the one I want in the guild." Jin-Ho was stunned. "What do you mean? She's an S-rank hunter, young, beautiful, and rich. Who could be better? So what kind of person are you looking for, then?" Jin-Woo gave a slight smile and replied, "Someone with a hunter license, but who doesn't want to be involved in guild activities? And more than anything, someone we can trust." He already had a few people in mind. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. Could it be Cha Hae-In again? But when he opened the door, it wasn't her. Park Jong-soo and his team were standing there. The Knights Guild had come in person to discuss something important. Without wasting time, Jong-soo explained the reason for their visit. He showed Jin-Woo footage of a massive gate. Even though size didn't always determine rank, the magical energy coming from it was off the charts. "This is the largest gate ever recorded in Bizen," said Jong-soo. At that moment, Jin-Woo thought of Yo-hee, his friend who lived in that city. Jong-soo continued, "The Hunters Association won't authorize our entry without an S-rank hunter." Then he got to the point. "That's why we'd like to ask for your help with this raid." To persuade Jin-Woo, he offered a generous deal. Normally, S-rank hunters get 10% of the profits from a dungeon cleared by major guilds. But in your case, we're willing to offer 20%. That's double what anyone else would get, but Jin-Woo didn't accept right away. He had another idea, 50-50 split. Jong-soo's smile disappeared for a second. At 50%, he tried to negotiate. How about 40%? But Jin-Woo stood firm. 50, the Knights Guild leader swallowed hard. He knew he had no choice. "Alright, deal." Before leaving, Jong-soo made one more request. "Would you mind if I took the boss?" Jin-Woo nodded. No problem with that. The agreement was sealed. The raid would begin the next day. The gate had been open for a while now, and if it wasn't closed soon, a dungeon break could occur. Jin-Woo wasn't planning to be late. Young Yu-tae noticed something odd. Jin-Woo's shadow seemed to be moving on its own. But Park Jong-soo didn't pay it much attention. Then Jin-Woo's phone rang. It was his mother. She had just gotten a new phone and wanted to call just to hear her son's voice. Jin-Woo smiled. "Mom, how about we have dinner together tonight?" She lit up at the suggestion. Now, Sung Jin-Woo could finally provide the very best for his family. And if there was anyone who truly deserved a moment of happiness, it was his mother. The next day, the scene shifts to the entrance of the gate in Bizen. The Knights Guild was already stationed at the site, waiting for the raid to begin. Park Jong-soo paced back and forth, growing impatient. Is Jin-Woo going to be late? It was already past 11 a.m. Only 5 minutes remained before the raid was set to begin. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jin-Woo was staring at the sky through a window. The weather was starting to turn. He thought to himself, "I wonder if my sister brought an umbrella to school." Even so, he couldn't afford to waste any more time. He had to go now. He activated his skill, Shadow Exchange. He ordered one of his shadows, the one with the Knights Guild, to return to him. And in the blink of an eye, he was transported directly to the gate's entrance. Meanwhile, at school, some students were getting ready for art class. They had been sent to an old storage room to fetch some canvases. The place was dusty, forgotten for ages. No one seemed to have been there in years. That's when one of the kids noticed something strange in the corner. A small gate had opened. One of the students, trying to stay calm, said, "Relax, there's nothing to worry about. Only hunters can enter gates. And whatever's inside can't come out." But was that really true? Gates usually take about a week to break open. Then another student muttered, uneasy, "What if this one's already been here for days?" A chill ran down everyone's spine. After all, no one had entered that room in a long time. They barely had time to react to the thought when, crack. The portal's surface shattered like broken glass and something came out. A huge, grotesque hand emerged from the darkness and, in the blink of an eye, grabbed one of the kids by the head. "Ah, help me," the boy screamed in total panic. But it was too late. Squelch! His head was crushed like a ripe fruit. Blood sprayed, staining the floor and the clothes of the other students. They froze, paralyzed by fear, and then their eyes went wide in horror. Something was coming out of the portal. A colossal monster was emerging from the darkness. Step by step, its presence devoured everything around it. What would happen now? Thanks for watching until the end, and see you in the next video.